There is a saying, the mountain does not concern itself with the wind that tries to shake it. In today's world of rising powers, alliances, and silent confrontations, there exists one nation still, focused, and deeply rooted in its ancient wisdom and modern ambition. That nation is India. Many have tried to measure it, to pressure it, to bend it, but like water flowing around obstacles, India evolves without losing its essence. You see, America has strength, yes. But strength without understanding is like fire without direction, and India, for all its complexity, cannot be defeated, because India is not just a country, it is a spirit. In this journey, I will guide you not just through facts and events, but through insight, through why India stands where it stands. So open your mind, remove judgment, and simply listen, because what you are about to discover is not just about geopolitics. It is about resilience, wisdom, and the one truth superpowers fail to understand. You cannot defeat what refuses to be broken. India's strength lies not in its weapons, but in its endurance. While many nations define power by military size, economic output, or global influence, India draws its resilience from something deeper, the power of civilization. For over 5,000 years, India has survived invasions, colonization, partitions, and internal challenges that would have fractured most countries beyond repair. But India endures. It adapts without losing itself. This is something most superpowers, including America, fail to fully comprehend, that the power to rise again, and again, even after being broken, is greater than the power to dominate. From the Mauryan Empire to the Mughal era, from British colonization to independence, India has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, both foreign and native. Yet, unlike many ancient civilizations that exist only in museums and textbooks, India still breathes, evolves, and expands. Its culture, language, religions, and traditions have withstood the test of time. This is not by accident. This is by the very nature of its civilization, flexible, tolerant, yet rooted. America, a relatively young nation, often interprets strength through short-term dominance. But India plays the long game. Where the West measures in decades, India thinks in centuries. Even under centuries of British rule, India never lost its core identity, the language, the spirit of resistance, the philosophies they were suppressed but never erased. When the British Empire stretched across the globe, it couldn't erase the Indian way of thinking. Why? Because that thinking was never just political, it was spiritual. The Indian mind was trained to endure suffering, to observe cycles, and to believe that even the darkest night gives way to light. This is not nationalism, it is truth. Every time India was pushed down, it rose again, not with vengeance, but with purpose. After independence in 1947, India faced countless problems: poverty, partition, communal violence, and global isolation. But still it stood, and then it walked, and now it runs. While other former colonies struggled to define themselves, India did so while maintaining its democratic structure, one of the largest and most chaotic on the planet. But even in chaos, there was rhythm. Even in difficulty, there was belief. The idea of India was never forced, it was accepted, because the people already knew what they were part of. This resilience cannot be bombed, sanctioned, or overthrown. It doesn't exist in government buildings or military arsenals. It lives in the minds of 1 billion people who may argue with each other, vote differently, pray differently, yet stand together when it matters. A civilization's real strength is not in conquering others, but in refusing to be conquered. And that is why, despite tensions, trade battles, and geopolitical pressure, America has never truly been able to control India the way it has influenced other regions. India respects strength but does not submit to it blindly. It remembers how submission once cost it centuries of rule under foreign powers. That memory, passed through generations, fuels a silent determination to remain free, no matter the cost. This silent force, made of wisdom, patience, and national memory, is stronger than any weapon America possesses. That is the true meaning of civilizational power, not noise, but presence, not domination, but survival with dignity. And so, when America looks at India, it sees a partner, a challenge, and sometimes even a rival. But it also sees something it cannot quite understand, a country that refuses to be dictated to, not out of arrogance, but out of memory. Out of the understanding that civilizations do not bow easily, and certainly not to the illusion of temporary superiority. India may bend, but it does not break, and that is what makes it undefeatable in the truest sense of the word. India's approach to international politics has long been shaped by its commitment to strategic non-alignment, a principle that makes it one of the most unpredictable players on the global stage. This unpredictability is not due to confusion or indecisiveness, but rather by design, a deliberate stance developed through decades of geopolitical observation, national introspection, and civilizational wisdom. While many countries align themselves clearly with either the West or East in search of protection, India maintains a balance that frustrates both sides yet earns reluctant respect from all. America, which is used to allies following a clear path, finds itself repeatedly challenged by India's refusal to fully lean one way. The roots of this strategy date back to the post-colonial period, when newly independent India, under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru, chose to co-found the non-aligned movement. Rather than becoming a pawn in the Cold War, India took a stand for sovereignty and decision-making. It refused to be manipulated by either the Soviet Union or the United States, choosing instead to chart its own course. That philosophy still guides its foreign policy today. India prefers options, not orders. It does not see alliances as submission, but as strategic relationships, and that distinction is critical. Unlike traditional U.S. allies who often follow Washington's line on global affairs, India constantly evaluates its interests on a case-by-case basis. When the West imposed sanctions on Russia, India didn't follow. When pressured to reduce trade with Iran, India found alternate ways to preserve its energy security. When China became increasingly aggressive, India increased defense ties with America, but did not fully commit to becoming part of a Western bloc. These decisions confuse analysts, but they are all connected by a common thread: sovereignty first. India's unpredictability is born from its independence. It refuses to sacrifice autonomy for favors, whether in defense procurement, trade agreements, or technology partnerships. India seeks leverage, not dependency. This self-guided diplomacy makes it incredibly hard to control or pressure, which frustrates powers like America, who are used to dictating terms. But this is exactly why India has been able to maintain relationships with opposing forces: the U.S., Russia, Iran, and even Israel, all at the same time. Few countries have such diplomatic range, and even fewer manage it without collapsing under contradictions. What outsiders perceive as inconsistency is, in fact, a reflection of India's long-term vision. It understands that global alliances shift over time. Today's friend can be tomorrow's rival, and today's enemy may one day become essential. India does not burn bridges. It does not follow blindly. It engages, observes, evaluates, and when necessary, walks alone. This flexibility allows it to navigate international pressure without becoming entangled. America, with its binary world, you ally or enemy, with us or against us, finds India's nuanced approach difficult to influence. This approach also gives India a unique diplomatic advantage. It can speak to multiple audiences at once. While the U.S. sees India as a key partner in countering China, India maintains careful trade and diplomatic ties with Beijing. While the West promotes liberal values, India defends its own cultural and political choices without apology. This doesn't mean India avoids cooperation, it simply does so on its own terms, and that autonomy, that refusal to be predictable or submissive, makes it immune to domination. At the heart of this independence lies the Indian mindset, patient, cautious, yet determined. It believes in timing over reaction, in silence over noise, and in strength through balance. This non-aligned behavior isn't passive, it's strategic. And in a world where power struggles often force nations into rigid alliances, India's ability to move fluidly through global affairs is a quiet form of strength. It does not need to shout to be heard, its unpredictability speaks for itself. India's rise in technology and economy is not accidental. It is the result of decades of focused investment, grassroots innovation, and strategic planning without becoming overly dependent on foreign powers. While many countries have grown through external support or by aligning tightly with global superpowers, India's growth model is rooted in self-reliance blended with selective collaboration. It has chosen to build internal capabilities in sectors like space, software, pharmaceuticals, and digital infrastructure while welcoming global investment on its own terms. This combination makes India increasingly powerful, yet difficult to control, especially for a country like America, which often leverages economic dependency as a tool of influence. From launching the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, with minimal resources to becoming one of the few nations capable of sending missions to Mars and the Moon, India's journey in technology has defied expectations. These feats were not backed by Western funding or reliance on global space programs. Instead, they were the outcome of domestic talent, disciplined planning, and a mindset that saw technology not just as a luxury, but as a national necessity. ISRO's low-cost missions have stunned the world and proved that excellence doesn't require extravagance, it requires vision. The same mindset applies across other sectors where India continues to grow without surrendering control to outside powers. In the digital space, India has become a unique force. The rollout of Aadhaar, the world's largest biometric identity system, has allowed the country to build a digital economy for over 1 billion people. The Unified Payments Interface UPI, developed in India, has transformed mobile payments and inspired countries across the world to study its model. These aren't foreign technologies imported with strings attached, they are homegrown innovations, scaled across one of the most diverse populations on the planet. When foreign tech giants enter India, they do so knowing they are entering a competitive and protected space, not a passive market. India welcomes investment, but not exploitation. This philosophy extends into areas like pharmaceuticals and health tech. During the COVID-19 pandemic, India emerged as the pharmacy of the world, supplying affordable vaccines to dozens of countries. It built domestic manufacturing capacity, even under intense pressure, and supported global health without waiting for Western permission. That independence in healthcare, especially when compared to the heavy global reliance on U.S. or European pharma industries, shifted the balance of trust toward India in the global south. It showed that India could step up not as a follower, but as a leader. Economically, India's scale is its power. With over 1.4 billion people, a rapidly growing middle class, and a youthful workforce, India is both a market and a production hub. Global companies, including those from the U.S., want access to India not out of charity, but necessity. But India makes sure these partnerships serve mutual interests. It has imposed local manufacturing requirements, data sovereignty laws, and digital taxes that frustrate many global corporations but protect its long-term interests. This refusal to blindly open up has earned criticism, but it has also prevented the kind of dependency that often cripples developing nations. The Make in India and Digital India campaigns reflect the country's ambition to reduce imports, promote innovation, and own its future. And unlike countries that depend on Western aid or alignment for development, India finances a large portion of its growth internally. Foreign capital is a tool, not a crutch. American investors are welcome, but not allowed to dictate terms. Trade ties are strong, but not lopsided. This balance ensures that while the U.S. may influence parts of India's economy, it cannot control it entirely. As India continues to climb the global rankings in GDP, tech exports, and startup innovation, its independence becomes more obvious and more threatening to those who rely on control as a form of power. India doesn't just want to grow, it wants to grow free. That, more than anything, is what makes it hard to defeat economically or technologically. India's true strength does not lie in its uniformity, but in its astonishing diversity, a diversity that does not divide, but instead weaves together a complex yet resilient national identity. Across its vast landscape, India is home to hundreds of languages, multiple religions, distinct cuisines, varied climates, and contrasting customs. In most countries, such diversity would be a recipe for conflict, fragmentation, or even civil war. But in India, it forms the foundation of its unity. This ability to integrate differences into a single national fabric is one of the most underestimated sources of power, and one that America, despite its own diversity, often struggles to fully comprehend in the Indian context. India is not built on sameness. A person from Kerala in the south may speak a completely different language, eat different food, and worship differently than someone from Punjab in the north, yet both identify as Indian with equal pride. This shared identity is not enforced from above. It emerges from the ground up. It is a product of centuries of coexistence, negotiation, and mutual respect among communities that learned to live together without losing themselves. While India has faced religious and regional tensions, its ability to maintain cohesion over decades is unmatched by any other democracy of its scale and complexity. The Indian Constitution, which enshrines secularism and cultural protection, plays a key role in preserving this unity. It doesn't ask people to abandon their identity to be part of the nation, it invites them to bring it along. That idea of inclusion makes every Indian feel represented, even when the system is challenged. In many ways, India's strength comes not despite its differences, but because of them. These differences force debate, dialogue, and compromise, all essential ingredients of a lasting democracy. The resilience of Indian democracy is a reflection of this broader cultural unity in diversity. America, on the other hand, has often seen diversity as a challenge to be managed through assimilation. The dominant expectation in the U.S. has historically been that immigrants or minority cultures adopt a central identity. India does the opposite. It absorbs without erasing. A Sikh, a Hindu, a Muslim, a Christian, and a Buddhist can all be Indian not just legally but culturally. This level of pluralism makes it extremely difficult for any external force to manipulate or divide the nation successfully, because no single narrative can overpower the millions of individual realities that coexist. This diversity also fuels creativity and resilience. India's music, films, literature, science, and entrepreneurship are born from a blend of perspectives. Innovation in India often comes from its ability to adapt global ideas to local contexts, a skill developed over centuries of internal diversity. Even in politics, where polarization exists, the multi-party system and regional voices ensure that no single ideology can dominate unchecked. The political structure mirrors the cultural one, complex, messy, but enduring. Socially, Indians are trained from a young age to navigate differences. Festivals from different religions are celebrated across communities. Neighbors speak different languages, and schools often mix children from vastly different backgrounds. This daily exposure creates a population that, while opinionated and passionate, has a higher threshold for tolerance than what is often assumed. This lived experience of plurality prepares the society to withstand internal and external pressures without collapsing. When foreign powers try to pressure India or shape its policies, they often misread this cultural armor. They look for fracture points where they assume the society will crack. But India has already faced partition, emergency rule, border wars, and insurgencies, and each time, the people have found a way to return to balance. This is not a society that breaks easily. Its complexity is not a weakness, it is a form of armor. A country that knows how to remain united in the face of division is not only stable, it is unshakable. And this unique form of cultural cohesion is something no external force, including the United States, has been able to unravel or defeat.